If you don't understand AI, it's okay. None of us do, because it's changing so fast.
We don't have to learn the LLM speak now. It has evolved to a place where it will meet us.
I think you can take really smart people, or good people that you already have at your company, and then arm them with this tool, and then they become way more effective.
I am not going to replace any of you with AI, but I am going to expect you to level up and be more productive. Welcome back to AI with Bry, the podcast where we explore how to learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm your host, Brian Dunstead, and today's episode is a little bit different. This conversation starts off from a recent appearance I did on Todd's podcast, where we reflected on 2025, the rapid evolution of AI and what leaders actually need to be doing right now, not just experimenting, but applying AI with intention. So Todd is an incredible host and thinker. His podcast focuses on really thoughtful conversations around leadership, growth, and navigating change in modern business. And I'm excited to have him back on this show to bring another fresh perspective from that conversation to our AI with Bry audience. So check out Tales from the Sky Lounge and Todd's podcast. And Todd, welcome to the show. So great to have you back again.
Yeah, it's been a few months. So it's always fun to talk to you. And we have like high bandwidth conversations. So I can get a super kick out of this.
Me too. Yeah. So, I mean, you're a podcast host yourself, a business leader. You're a really thoughtful voice in any deep conversations I've had, and a great sounding board for some of that stuff. So thanks again for coming back, and thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, we need to do this more.
Absolutely. So hopefully Todd will be a recurring guest on the show with us as we unpack AI, as we're both down the rabbit hole pretty far. So I want to try and stick with learn, leverage, and lead as best we can. And I know we're going to wander a little bit, but if we focus on just learning, and I think that, this wrap up episode kicking off the new year, like, what has 2025 taught us about AI? I mean, you and I have talked about it a little bit the other day when we recorded, but like, hit us with some of those points for us.
Yeah. So the learn motif, right? So boy, are things changing in a rapid pace. And if you don't understand AI, it's okay. None of us do, because it's changing so fast. Ask again in 3 months, just jump in. Right. Mm-hmm. But I think it's, you have to, it's kind of cliche. You get these commercials on YouTube late at night or TikTok, hey, leverage AI, disappear for 30 days and, do whatever. But I do think that's right. You have to spend some time sharpening the saw. You have to get in and learn at least a little bit of something. AI is going to transform our lives, whether you like it or not. Very, very, very rapidly.
It feels like a Monty Python thing to some degree. Or like, what AI has taught us is we don't know what we don't know, and we're just wandering around in the dark like everybody else. But
drink from the fire hose, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Don't ignore it, because it is here to stay, just like the internet and computers and things like that. What's the most misunderstood piece of AI from 25?
So I don't think AI is going to do all things for everybody magically. I think, for me, I think the world needs to evolve away from that. And this may be a hot take, but don't go get an agent and then give them 100% responsibility for something and name it and put it on the org chart. I don't think that. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
But at least where we are today. But I think you can take really smart people, or, good people that you already have at your company, and then arm them with this tool, and then they become way more effective. And I think that's the play.
I think like we were talking a little bit earlier before we hit the record button, to try and summarize it. It was something around the shift that I've seen as a CTO is we've been brought in typically in the past to sort of help solve, what tool should I use? Mm-hmm. And now I think you and I have rapidly realized that AI is solving, we don't care about the tool. What problem am I solving?
Back to business operations problems,
right? Like, it's tying those two together.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of parts to this, but I'm going to say there's a practical AI part of this, where there's a fundamental literacy problem. where it's like Excel or Word or PowerPoint. This is another tool set that everybody's got to pick up at least a modicum of to make you go faster. Now, crawl, walk, run is kind of my mantra. So that's crawl. The very beginnings of crawl, you have to personally be productive. There's going to be even more leverage as you go up to team and enterprise. And then you're going to need a little help getting up those curves. And we could talk about what those architectures look like and what we have to do to absorb that as companies. And I think there's a lot of work to do. But I think it starts with personal productivity right now. And then the faster we can get people up that curve to understand what these things are capable of, the better for everybody. And then we can start to talk about how do we work as a team? How do we impact operations? How do we build new software? How do we put together systems? When do we build? What do we buy? All those kind of typical questions.
It's learning how to think differently. The bottom line. I know, when we talked like a year ago on the 25 projections, I was very much so in this mindset of like, here are some amazing, perfect prompts. Here are some amazing ways to get the LLM to do that. And I think this past year has really shifted, and we don't have to learn the LLM speak now. It has evolved to a place where it will meet us. But I still find without the experience I have, I don't push it where I want it to go. Right. Like I just told a team how to use the instructions module so that every time I go into a project, I don't have to reset where I want it to head in a general direction. Like you use the instructions, you use certain basic pieces of it to get it heading in the right direction. Like be the devil's advocate or make sure everything you talk about is plant-based. You know what I mean? Like whatever that direction is, like you can steer it that way.
Yeah.
But a year ago was like, no, I have to curate the right prompt with this right framework and tee everything up. And now I don't think you have to do that as much. So I'm trying to give people some learning tips here to go down the rabbit hole with us.
Yeah. So there's this old, joke, the scientists are climbing the hill, the mountain, and they get all the way to the top of the mountain. And guess who's at the top? It's the priest or the monk. It's like it's been religion the whole time.
That's right.
But that's kind of where we are, right? So what I'm realizing is AI's a magnifier of good and bad, right? And then it's not some magic silver bullet where you just go, hey, figure this out. That's a bad way to do things, right?
Yeah.
And then what I'm coming around to is, hey, the way we've always developed software still works. It's just, I don't have to check syntax anymore before I check stuff in. I got a helper, or I don't have to plan this stuff, or I have an accelerator where I have to think the strategic thoughts. I still have to do the planning, and then we still have to do the architecture. I just do a lot faster now, and then have a bunch of fact checkers, and then a bunch of alternatives that can come in and go, oh, hey, have you considered this, or think about that, or there's a hole here. Now we can do more, but it's still the same things that we've always been doing. We're still the monk at the top of the mountain, right? And then same thing for marketing or CFO work. You're still going to generate the same artifacts in the same order and then do the same analysis. You just now have help and you go a lot faster, a lot deeper, a lot better quality. I kind of think that's where we're going. So don't abandon the old ways strategically or operationally. Some of that stuff is going to change a little bit. Like if your job is, hey, type it into the spreadsheet and then email it to somebody, and then they're going to type their thing into the spreadsheet and they're going to email it to somebody, like that's going to go away.
Yes.
But like what's on the spreadsheet and then what the result of the spreadsheet is still good, right? We're just going to get there a different way. But, the big blocks are still going to be the same, I think. And then we all have to get more proficient.
It's going to force I keep saying it's going to force everybody one rung up the ladder.
Yes.
Like everybody's got to move up one rung because the AI is going to take that bottom rung for sure.
Yeah. We're all going to be managers at minimum.
Yeah. Well, I want to, as we wrap up the learn segment here a little bit, I want to just get a couple quick hits out of the way. Favorite overall LLM for 2025?
I mean, they're all okay. I'm neck deep in Claude. I really, really wring a lot of stuff out of Claude. I'm a coder, so Claude Code is, really reflects my personality. very bad for art or PowerPoint or anything like that. So definitely not good for that kind of stuff. But that's who I am and what I do daily. I know Banana and Gemini and some of those are a lot better at the art. It's just kind of not what I do day to day. But I think there's an LLM for you. And don't worry if you don't like the ones we have today. Just wait 3 months. It'll be some more. Right. So
I find I absolutely agree 1,000%. Claude Code is blowing anything else I've played with out of the water. I think a couple of times I've tried Codex. It's done a halfway decent job, but I still find myself going back to Claude because of the plugins and some of the other things that it just does. I have to say, I'm addicted to ChatGPT because all my context is already there.
Well, sure.
Yeah. And I, so you're locking into certain things as you build that ecosystem around you with it. So I'm definitely a GPT day to day, but Claude for the coding. And then I still think the secret winner is going to be Gemini in the long run. I think they're playing a long game.
Yeah.
So
they were there.
Nano Bananas proved it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were there. Google was there with TensorFlow, a decade or more ago, 2014, something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's logical that they're going to be a major player at some point in some way. So
what's your favorite? I am 1,000% addicted to WhisperFlow. And so people that aren't using it, get some sort of tool. You press one key on your keyboard and you can speak in, we can speak way faster than we can type. Mm-hmm. Are you WhisperFlow addict, or do you find SuperFlow or the 10 others that are out there? Which one's your voice to text?
Yeah. So Plaud, Plaud. So I don't have one here. I usually almost always have it on my body, but it's a little thing that looks like a credit card, and it's got a little magnet that goes right on the back of your phone. And then, so that is my go-to. And then, so if we're out, I can't tell you how many times I've been out and then somebody goes, "Hey, what we ought to do is," and I'll go, "Wait," and I put it on the table and hit record, in a restaurant or a bar, or, wherever we are in a conference room, and go, "Hey, I'd like to record this." And then, that is something that's so easy. Just find some way to record what you do, take the notes and the summary, and then take that and find a way to put it in your OpenAI or Gemini or Claude desktop, your personal productivity tool, and then use that as a starting point, and then say, "Hey, go review my email, go review my calendar, take this, conference notes." Mm-hmm. And then let's go do blah, 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 design a product, or go do research on the marketplace, or evaluate this business idea for if, whether or not it's a good idea, and I think that's my favorite way to do it. I like Plaud. They're all good. Right. And I think, ambient compute, or, how are we going to get all this stuff in? We talked about that the other day. We're all going to have a pen or glasses or a watch, or, it doesn't matter. Right. But it's coming.
It is.
And use something.
Yeah, Limitless was just bought by Facebook, the pendant you wear and it records you 24/7. So that future is fastly approaching us.
Yep. Get you some. And then that's a super easy thing that everybody should be doing right now. Figure out, because we all, everybody, it was a joke coming out of COVID, right? Because Firefly and Otter and, whatever, the Zoom bot is in all these meetings. Sometimes you have more recorders than people, so
that's for sure.
but nobody's ever do anything with them, and just kind of piled up. And then it's like, oh, that's something we got to all figure out. That's an easy first step. Do something with it.
I'm addicted to Crisp AI, and that's my favorite one. And Crisp just rolled out their API. So now I can put a webhook, and I'm so excited about this, because once the webhook gets the transcript and can feed it in, and I can have it automatically fill in Jira or ClickUp or any other tool under the sun with the action items from the meeting, it's just going to be phenomenal. So awesome stuff. Some cool little tools and tips for you. I hope that helps if you're watching this. I think the thing that I'm the most excited about talking with you today is this leverage segment, because we are both leveraging AI heavily in everything that we're doing. Talk to me about some of the projects you've worked on in 25 and how you're taking AI leverage to whole new heights.
So a couple interesting things. So at the beginning of the year, we have partners that are non-technical members of the C-suite. So one of them in particular is a CMO, and she was looking for. She was frustrated because she couldn't figure out how to, she felt like we ought to be able to auto generate proposals or statements of work as consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she wrote it up and said, hey, look at my last 5 emails with a client, look on my calendar, look for any notes in a special folder, and generate a statement of work. And then maybe look at my recordings.
Yeah.
And if she couldn't figure out how to do it, she couldn't figure out how to bolt all those things together. So that kind of sent me down the MCP rabbit hole, and teaching her how to plug things in without a whole lot of code, a lot of technical setup.
Yeah.
So that spawned a lot of productivity, like tiny little agents in my Claude desktop. I have them as projects. OpenAI has got the same kind of thing. There's ways to do it no matter what your platform is, but figure out a way to automate personally a lot of your repetitive tasks in your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big unlock. And it's when you can pull in tools and be able to use tools like look at my email, look at my calendar, look at my folder, when my Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, that
Mm-hmm.
becomes super powerful to mash all that stuff up.
Yeah.
And then the next thing for me was the ability to code. So I was kicking around Claude Code, and
you and I are CTOs that love to code, but
Right.
don't get to do it very much in our day to day. But now
Right.
that has all changed. In 2025, I did more programming I've done in the past 10 years.
Right. I used to tell people a year ago, like, you should not pay me. I can code. I code anything you want. You should not pay me to code because it's not worth your money. That's not a good use of funds.
Yeah.
I'm 100% opposite of that right now, where
Yes.
I'm going, you should buy a week of my time for 10 grand and let me do this for you. And I'll get you set up right and lay down, architecture tracks. We're going to have to hire a team, but I can at least get you in business.
Yeah.
With something, for early stage founders, like that doesn't work, a little bit later stage, we have
That's
to
right.
be, but the coding tools, and then my favorite play is, you have like Claude Desktop, just what I happen to be using. You can do a lot of really good research, and then you can pull in some of these conversations that you've had for customer discovery, and then do research about the business idea and then motivations and what the cash flows might look like, and then what the pricing might look like, and what the go-to-market is going to look like, and customer segmentation and all that, like super rapidly, and then suggest what products should we build, and then in what order, and then only do phase one to prove out, like, can we sell it and do people care?
Yeah.
I think that's been a super effective leverage point for me personally. Like one of my roommates from college, he called me up on a Saturday at like 2, and we had dinner party at 6, and I was just like, I was about like that far down taking a nap on the couch. Yeah. And he's like, hey, number one, I'm getting divorced. Number two, I got a couple ideas. I want you to help me code up. And usually it'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. But this year I said, yes, let's do it. Put him through this process before the sunset, or before I went to the dinner party. We had all those business documents generated. And then while I was at the dinner party, my coding agent was doing its thing. And I didn't know what to expect. I figured it'd be a complete mess when I got home. So I come home and it actually worked.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, wow. And then, so before I went to bed, I sent him the GitHub repo. And then, actually I got a YouTube on, my, speed run through Claude, side channel. But, what do you do with that superpower? And then, that's a small, trivial example, but man, he's in business if he wants to be. And I think we decided that he's never going to make any money on that.
It's there. I mean, I did the same thing. I just hung out with my 9-year-old daughter and said she wants to build a game. She's always looking at me and my computer setup and everything. And can I sit with you and let's build a game? And I said, sure, let's try it. And we built a little duck flying game in 45 minutes.
Wow.
Like, it's using some offshoot of the Unreal Engine. It's got graphics. It's got a little shop, like a login. I mean, like, we did that all in 45 minutes. That's how powerful that was. I mean, maybe it's the groundwork I laid, but I had already had it auto deploying out to a server.
Wow.
Like, I mean, And so for $10, I bought the domain name and connected it, and like, we're done. Like, it's just that simple. Like, the power of that is so incredible right now.
Yeah, and I'll throw a caveat out there. I think it's a hot take, but throwing darts at a white screen, a blank screen, and hoping for the best, like vibe code style, like Replit, is not. It's not a good idea, right? So you may or may not get something that's useful on an industrial basis. But I think these tools are super powerful in the right hands. And then, like you just mentioned, hey, I've got certain ways I like to do things. Of course you do. Right? And then you know where the middle of fairway is, and let's just go there, right? And then I think leveraging your brain, having been in business for decades and seeing a bunch of different ways to do this, and have very strong opinions on what works and what doesn't. That's the thing that makes the difference, right? So we're not, it's the monk at the top of the mountain. The ways we've always done it is still good, right? It's just how we get there is different.
That's right.
And then, maybe to hijack the conversation, so now that we have the ability to make all this this code or product very quickly, I'm calling it fast food software era. What does that do to the world? Right. Yeah. And then, maybe we can talk about the leadership part of the podcast, but, profound implications, so what profound. It's never been easier to get in business. And then at the same time, it's never been harder to break through. We're talking about that.
It's a perfect segue into the leadership segment. I mean, there's so much you can do to leverage AI, and everybody should be doing it. I mean, it's such a grounded view you're bringing here. Leverage is only working when it aligns with what we're doing as humans and values and clear intent. So if we dive into the last 10 minutes of the podcast here, talking about leadership, I think this is the area that leaders struggled the most in 2025, but it's going to have the most profound impact. Like, look, you and I can video chat with anybody on the planet right now instantly. Like, that's because of technology and the internet from 20, 30 years ago, right? And in 20, 30 years from now, AI is going to permeate every inch of society, whether you realize it or not, whether you're calling it AI or not. Like, I was reading some book actually about the future. Oh, that's just a dumb AI. It's just following its rote script. That's not a sentient AI, is what they were calling it, right? Like, so where this is going to go and how this is going to hopefully help raise humanity up, help us heal the planet in so many ways, be healthier, have more time with our kids. I don't know what it is, but lay it on me, Todd. What's your vision?
You sparked a thought there. So I was talking to one of my favorite clients about this, right? And then so I had introduced coding efficiencies and then some marketing tools to them. And I said, the danger here is, now that we can do more, is to expect more from your workers. Yes. And then so there's this like, we've now raised the bar. And, some employers some managers that are not great are going to say, oh, wow, now we're going to require everybody to do 300% of what they were doing before. And then whereas better managers, the smart ones, are going to say, hey, we can relax a little bit. This is going to buy us headroom for people to be human and remove that emotional lift and the grindy bits of their job. It's going to be a much better place to work. And we're all going to have time to go out for lunch and have coffee and spend time with our kids, or, you can take a Friday off, and I
just had one of those conversations with my team. I said, I am not going to replace any of you with AI.
Right.
But I am going to expect you to level up and be more productive. And I hope we can work towards a 4-day work week, or, you know what I mean? Like, so how do we claim back some of our humanity that we've lost as life has gotten so busy? That's I hope we can make that happen in 26.
Yeah. It's a tool, and it cuts both ways. So just be careful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you already hit my first key bullet point. Why fear-based leadership is going to fail during the AI age. Talk to me about, I think the other thing that we struggle with, especially as we have the higher expectations as a society, is the transparency and the issues around AI adoption. Like, our team doesn't know it. Like, we need to lead by teaching them. Like, you and I are on the forefront and have the ability to experiment and fail. And then the things that we know work, we have to take to the team And we have to let them feel comfortable sharing their failures and saying, that's okay. Like that was your first time doing that with AI. Like, how are you helping coach teams and lead teams through this failure, transparency, learning curve that we have to go through?
Yeah. Good question. There's so much initial success, when you start small. And then I always tell people, look, a healthy way to look at this is it's an assistant. And then it's like a fresh out MBA student who's really, really motivated and really, really smart, but has no idea the way the world works. If you treat it like that, maybe it's okay. Right. And then, like I was in front of a partner, a law firm, and then I was doing a demo of capabilities, exploring what all we could do. And then, it always kind of comes up of, wow, like this does all the stuff my paralegals would do, and they're all knuckleheads, and it's going to do all the things that the assistants used to do or to tee up. And then he's still going to do the things that he has to do as a senior partner when he puts his name on it and gives it to the court. He's going to go check it. Right. And then, sometimes it's, if you do it really well and give it the right context and ask it correctly in terms of prompting, you can get amazing results. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you just kind of one shot it and are sloppy and don't give it a lot of tools, it's going to fill in the gaps and just make up what seems like BS sometimes. Yeah. And you really don't want to go down that road, but you got to be aware that no matter what you do, that's going to happen, and that's okay. Right. And then you still have to be human and check your work. You're just going to get to the point where you check your work a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And then, editing is a whole lot less draining than creating sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find like I've had to, in the past month or so, explain why I'm not concerned about the electricity usage and why I'm not also concerned that AI is going to take over and kill us all, because I know an LLM is just a math problem. It's just solving math.
Yeah. It's
like this isn't, you know what I mean? So do you find you have to go back to some of the base? Like I'm fortunate enough to have gone to school where they forced me to do machine learning and know what ones and zeros are and or gates. And, I know the basics of how a computer is calculating the the pixels we see on the screen. Are you teaching people what an LLM really is behind the scenes instead of this all-knowing God that's in the box?
I kind of leave that one alone. And then I coach them on capabilities more. And then it's, here's what it can do. Here's some examples. It does good off the rails every once in a while, and that's okay. So you have to stay on it. It's not full auto. You should not just let it go for a long time. And then, we kind of leave it at that. I think there's a lot of folks that you run into, like I talked to some people on the internet about the philosophy of, the personality of the LLMs, or, this one's, more or less, interested in politics.
Grok always comes up.
Well, I don't know. But, is it useful to even you shouldn't be using it as a therapist. It's not a sentient being, right? It is a very good tool. If you frame it as a tool that, even a hammer, right? If you're hammering nails, occasionally you're going to miss, if you think about it kind of in that context, it's just a tool. And then it's there to help you as a person be a more effective person and elevate you to where you can work on more strategic things and do the things that humans should be doing, talking to people, making connections, thinking strategically. Yeah. Right. And then offload all this grindy stuff that you hate doing anyway.
That's right.
And if you kind of frame it like that right now, I think that's where we are. That's a useful way to think about it.
What's the... Yeah, you knocked that one out of the park. I know I agree with everything you said.
My Roomba is really stupid, right?
That's right.
So if you just kind of but sometimes you have to just guide it and say, hey man, I'm going to set you down in the kitchen now because you shouldn't go over there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I know we were talking on your podcast, and it felt like there was a couple loose ends that we didn't get to check off the list. Do you happen to have that sheet handy? We want to do a couple quick takes on some of the bullet points from from our predictions for 25 and 26 and how we did. I mean, in summary, I think we came up with 13 or 14 predictions, and we nailed like 8 or 9 of them, had a couple mediocres and then a couple misses. That was the summary. Check out that episode. I'll make sure the link is in our show notes for that episode of Tales from the Sky Lounge. But what were the couple other bullet points that we didn't get to finish dissecting?
Oh, gosh. Well, so I think we hit on a lot of them. Agentic AI was on my list. I think we covered that. And then I think, how that's going to impact how businesses get formed, I think is a big deal. What do we invest in is pretty profound. It's no longer going to be about the tech founders, but it's going to be a lot more about business and distribution. You and I are both into the podcasts. I think, some of our peers think we're crazy, but
yes,
I think it's the only thing that's real. And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of comments from people that are just random that I haven't talked to forever. I'm so glad that you're doing that. It's like the only thing that's actually real on my Instagram feed, or, I get comments like that all the time. And then, but I think distribution and being able to connect with people is going to be the moat. I don't think it's data anymore. I think, 2 years ago, I would have said it's all about data and how clean the data is. And then can you extract machine learning models? I think these frontier models are making that kind of obsolete for a lot of business problems. And it's going to be about human connection and the traditional MBA, style business problems in the world.
I agree.
We talked about one of the things that we didn't talk about yesterday was household formation. The generation that's coming of age now is having a lot of hard time, keeping up with inflation and forming a household, buying a car, buying a house, keeping a job. My hope is that AI is going to cause a little bit of deflation. Things are going to become cheaper. And we're seeing that when the models are becoming more effective for a lower price point. My hope is that as everything becomes more efficient, and we're coming back to this, how is everybody going to manage? Are you going to expect even more, grind from people, or are you going to use AI for good and give everybody a little bit of headroom? I'm hoping that permeates into society and helps this next generation and everybody really have a little bit of headroom in the economy so that we can, maybe save a little bit, maybe get ahead a little bit, form households, have kids, have grandkids, and then, and then maybe enjoy life a little bit more. That's my hope.
And if you want to be a digital nomad, have the ability to do that too. Like we want them to just get out there and experience life and have, I don't know if it's the American dream anymore or not, but like you be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think AI is going to help us unlock a lot of that. I don't think it's going to create a utopian society anytime soon, but I certainly hope it lets us feel like we're leading a more rewarding, fulfilled life on that front. So I think
we can relax. Relax just a little bit. I think life will be a lot better.
Get to do more golfing, right?
Yeah. That's a new thing this year for me. Yeah. So
I love it.
Maybe.
Todd, this has been an incredible conversation. I want to thank you again for inviting me on your podcast again and for continuing the dialogue over here on AI with Bry. For everybody listening out there, if 2025 taught us anything, it's that AI rewards those who are willing to learn continuously, leverage intentionally, and lead courageously. So be sure to check out Todd's Tales from the Sky Lounge podcast for more thoughtful conversations like this one. The link again will be in our show notes, but it's talesfromtheskylounge.com, right?
That's right.
And if you found today's episode helpful, please share it with someone who's trying to figure out AI and what it really means for their work and their leadership. Thanks again, Todd, for being here. Any final closing thoughts for us?
No. So looking forward to 26 and making a lot of friends along the way. So thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Happy New Year. Until next time, keep learning, leveraging, and keep leading with AI. Thanks again, Todd. Bye. This episode of AI with Bry was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bry and visit ai.bry.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.